Maryland State Bill 0387, filed apparently earlier this year. So the law is intended to state that they are trying to ban ghost guns. Now, I've never really actually seen or heard about a ghost firearm or ghost gun, or in any way, shape, and form, anything that's even remotely like a ghost gun. Though this is actually it's intended to ban the self-manufacturer of the 80% firearm. An 80% firearm essentially is just a block of alloy, read like aluminum, or a block of polymer, which is the basic shape of a intended firearm. It has 80% of the necessary machining or the necessary shaping done to make it close enough to where you could actually work on it and do the last 20% to make it 100% correct and actually a fully usable firearm. Now, case in point, this intended legislation in place, they state that, to be completely legal now, you have to have, let me just read the thing. Altering a certain definition of quote-unquote firearm, of which an 80% firearm is not a firearm. It is merely a paperweight at that point because it is not a functioning firearm. So, to include certain unfinished frame or receiver, prohibiting a person from purchasing, receiving, selling, offering to sell, or transferring an unfinished frame or receiver, or possessing a firearm on or after January 1, 2023, unless it is required by federal law to be and has been imprinted with a certain number in a certain manner, and requiring the Secretary of State Police to suspend or revoke a certain dealer's license if the dealer is charged with or convicted of certain crime. That is so arbitrary, capricious, and just damn vague, it really doesn't say anything. So essentially what they say from nuts to bolts, what they're intended to say is they're trying to say, basically, excuse me, I gotta rustle a couple things on the side here. And what they're trying to say is they're intending for people to take an 80% firearm, and in its completion, excuse me, I'm doing more rustling here, in its completion, they will then have a weapon that is legitimately, legally, roughly about the same thing as a standard lower receiver. Now, case in point, I can tell you for a fact, the 80% firearm is legitimately something that, well, I have done myself. So, literally what this is Bark Bark. Bark Bark is my 7.5-inch AR-15 pistol, detachable box mag, all the rest of that good stuff. It has a very nice buffer tube on it, which does have, sling goodies on it. And it is a lot of fun at the gun range. Very, very loud, garners ridiculous attention. Hang on a second here, let me check my settings again. All of a sudden, we just got very, very dark. Let me check that. Okay, let me just do that one. That should work. A little better. Okay, well, you guys can see me now. All right, so essentially what this is basically the lower receiver is an 80% firearm. Now, what's going to have happen here is the situation is if Maryland puts that thing in place, I'm simply going to take Bark Bark and I'm going to render Bark Bark into something legal by using, that's right, a legally obtained and currently justifiably good to go. This one is an Anderson lower. Well, coordinating things just, the way I do stuff. The way it works in Maryland is for you to buy a AR-15, it has to be of the correct configuration. Translation needs to be an H-bar or heavy barrel configuration. There is a loophole. You may buy a lower, which is quote-unquote a quote-unquote weapon, or it is just considered a lower. It is not a pistol, it is not a rifle, and it has no definition placed upon it. As a matter of fact, when you look at the receiver, this one, of course, from top to bottom says Anderson Manufacturing AM-15 multi-cal serial number. Now, what that means essentially is you can take this thing from any extent and you can place it in any way to any caliber in any configuration because these guys are virgin receivers. They have never been an assembled firearm, so in the process of being an unassembled firearm, you may take the stuff and do anything that you want to. And oh, bad guys, if you want to, the serial number is on my side. So you can't screen grab and grab a copy of my serial number, okay? This one as well. The serial numbers are always on the left side on the Anderson receivers. Now, the thing about it is, anytime that Maryland proposes something gun stuff, I go out and buy a couple more lowers. That's just how I roll. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to simply just grab the bull by the horns. And I really, truly, seriously hate to do this. I haven't chosen which one I'm going to do it with yet, but Bark Bark is going to be converted from a Polymer 80 AR-15 80% lower receiver into an actual serialized AR-15 lower receiver. Well, also the other thing too is I'm also going to go from polymer to alloy. So what this is going to then be is it's going to be a full metal firearm. And of course, me looking at things as it is down the road, I'll simply just take Bark Bark's receiver and I'll mail it out to one of my buddies out of state, and good stuff like that there, and they'll take care of it. And of course, it's a finished polymer receiver, and I'll put it in a package, and I'll seal the package, and I'll tell them in no certain terms, do not open the package. Don't utilize the lower receiver. We have not transferred. You are storing this for me, which is legal. If I was to ship them a finished 80% lower receiver and say, hey man, take this thing, put it together, and have fun with it, that would be an illegal transfer / manufacture, and very, very highly illegal. Now, here's the thing. 80% lower receivers in any configuration, or 80% firearms in any configuration, 3D printed firearms, any firearm that you make for yourself. Translation, home build firearm. You may only have it on you. When you die, you can, of course, hand it down to the next person in line in your family, read wife and kids. They can receive it. However, you may not make and also transfer an 80% in terms of you basically just making one for one of your buddies. And there's also some very sketchy, kind of squishy, don't do it's for essentially, you show the guy how to set it up in the drill press. You show the guy how to set it up in the vertical milling machine. You show the guy how basically to make an 80% lower receiver. Now, I've heard it said, essentially, you basically tell a dude, okay, put that in there, okay, tweak this, tune that, adjust this, that, and the other thing, and you make that guy do that stuff under your instruction. If you so much as walk up to that machine and go, boop, and press the on button, you have now manufactured that firearm for somebody else, and you potentially could have some time in Club Fed, also known as the Gray Bar Motel. Don't do that to yourself. You may only make an 80% lower receiver or an 80% firearm or a 3D printed firearm for you, not anybody else, strictly for you. There will be no transfer of it. If things break, crush the receiver. Turn it into crap, throw it away, basically write it off, okay? You may not do a transfer after manufacture of an 80% lower receiver to anybody. It is only for you. Now, coaching people, I've heard there's been some issues before where guys basically sell 80% lower receivers, and they're not quote-unquote a gun store, but they sell all the parts. They sell the 80% unfinished lower receivers, and they have what's referred to as build parties. In the back of the place, they have drill presses, if not a vertical milling machine, read a Bridgeport, something along those lines, and they will show the people how to make the firearms. It's gotten squishy and really kind of weird in that regard because the government's then going, hey, you can't do that. Well, the problem is when you do that, have you now manufactured a firearm, or have you coached somebody and instructed them on how to do something to make a finished firearm? You got to be really, really careful about that because there's a really, really, really razor-thin line between you instructing and you manufacturing. Be very, very careful about that. I would not be somebody as bloody damn obvious as to have oh, this is Billy Bob's 80%, gun emporium. Come on in and build your gun here on site. That's happened before, and those places have been raided. I can tell you from, personal interaction with people in the industry, they've been raided. There's been attempts by the federal government to grab customer lists, and I can tell you for a fact, they are not happy when people express their freedom in a way that they cannot employ any form of control upon. So, essentially what it is at this point is, If you're going to buy or use an 80% firearm at this point in time, do it by yourself. Don't do it with friends. And if you do post up a video, make sure that you're the only guy working the camera and doing the actual machining, because with editing, you can make everything look, well, maybe not perfect, but you can make it look a whole hell of a lot less unprofessional than if you were just simply just going, I tripped over this and I ground on that. Blah. It's just much easier to simply say, yes, I did it all on my own. Speaking of which, I think this thing needs to go out to the gun range. I think I might actually switch out the receiver before I do. I don't know if it's a paranoia thing on my part or a self-protection thing, but there's a reason why I bought, well, not just one, but, hang on a second, I'll be dropping stuff. Not just one, but 2 more Anderson lower receivers. All right, folks, I'm going to break up on this one. Equal protection rig, as always, you know you love it. Stay legal. Watch the laws coming down the pike. And, of course, always complain for fun and profit. When these Congress critters try to do these just unconstitutional actions, stop them from furthering the cause of removing your liberty. Also, it's just a hell of a lot of fun to build an 80% lower receiver. It just is, okay? I have the tools. I have all the machining and everything. It's just fun, okay? So, if you can do that in your state, you have a free state, of which Maryland is not, it's known as the free state, but it's not the free state. The irony is just unbelievably deep here. But I'm going to break up with this one, folks. Equal protection rig, as always, you know you love it, and gun goodness.